I can't tell you how many times I come across businesses and brands and where they're not highlighting the benefits enough. And your landing pages and your creative, everything is benefits, benefits, benefits. The features lead into the benefits, right? And if you have any features, it's like list how that feature equals a benefit. And sometimes call out the benefit. Sometimes the benefit could be a feeling that they get, but highlighting that, because that's what we buy from, right? We buy off of how is this going to better my life? How is this going to make my life easier? Whatever it is, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you're selling. So if you identify all of those things and you unlock that, you'll have some of the best performing campaigns ever because you know who you're talking to. You are making yourself stand out in the market, and then you're highlighting why they should buy it.
Welcome to another episode of From Startup to Wunderbrand with Nicholas Kuhner. From bicycle rentals to digital marketing CEO, Samir Al-Kamuni is the founder of Fetch and Funnel, a performance-driven digital marketing agency, and he's worked with some of the world's top brands, leveraging cutting-edge strategies to drive growth, maximize ROI, and deliver measurable results. I'm sure you've heard that from a whole bunch of other people who say they've done it, but Samir is somebody who's actually really done it. Welcome, Samir.
Thanks for having me, Nicholas. Appreciate it.
And I've got to tell the audience something slightly funny, that Samir is way more Norwegian than me. In fact, 30% more, 30% more Norwegian than me.
Love it.
But I did get a bit of a memory refresh. My grandfather's name is actually Harold. Now, Harold is a very good Norwegian name, so I forgot about that. So there must be back, if I do the genetic pool, I'm sure, and his father was Harold. So I'm sure if you go back, it's Harold, back to Harold Finebeard or Harold the Handsome, one of the two. Now, you've been an entrepreneur for quite a while, and what I wanted to touch on today. You started off on your entrepreneurial journey. Then you joined a company to be an employee. Then you went back to starting your own business. Then you went back to being an employee. Then you went back to running a very successful 7-figure business. Each time that you've gone from being an employee to an entrepreneur, how has that ladder gone in terms of knowledge and learning? What do you wish you'd learned when you started your first business that you sort of know now? And is that big enough? I mean,
no, I love that question. I've never been asked that, but I think it's actually something I preach a lot to friends and individuals and people I know that are trying to get into entrepreneurship, because I know for a fact the experience I gained as an employee at some of those positions gave me the experience and knowledge that enabled me to just be so much more successful in my startups. I mean, even the first startup, I mean, you talked about the bicycle rental company. It was sort of that business was too early. I was too early to that game. So we were trying to do hubless bicycles, the whole thing. Like essentially we were trying to do Lime bikes. We were called green bikes before Lime bikes ever existed. and it was too early to the game, but it was funny. I was in college and I'm taking HR classes. I'm taking finance classes. I'm taking all these business courses, and I'm saying to the HR professor, so I'm trying to hire my first 3 employees. What do I do? And they're like, no. We're all principal high level stuff here. We're not teaching you any of that here. And so it was really frustrating because I was like, why am I going? I'm majoring in entrepreneurship. Why am I even going to school? Because I'm not learning any of the skills that I need, that I actually want to go and start a business.
But they'll teach you HR of how to manage a department of 500 people. Exactly.
So it was really frustrating from that perspective. And so, yeah. And so each time, went back to work for someone else. I always had the entrepreneurial bug, always knew that I would work for myself, and so there wasn't like a worry, but it was just always, find what am I going to work on? What is it? Something that excites me. And then, and I think the best thing you can do sometimes is even try to see if you can do it for someone else to prove it out. Like that was actually something I did where I knew I wanted to start an agency, but I hadn't done it. So sort of worked for a startup, made sure, okay, I know I can talk the talk and I actually walk the walk. I did. I got them awesome results. Like, okay, great. I could do this. Now I went to another agency and I said, let me grow the digital advertising side of your business, because they didn't do that. And I got a huge, expensive 6-month contract. I convinced them to pay me a whole bunch of money. I went out to Austin, Texas, worked for them for 6 months, and I did exactly that. I helped them grow that arm of the business. And then it gave me all this experience, but I also got behind the curtain access to how they ran their agency, the good, the bad, the ugly. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take some of these nuggets that are really great, some of the things I don't like the way they do, I'm going to do it differently. And then boom, enabled me to be so much more successful than I would have been had I just kind of jumped all in without having that experience.
So the benefit you've had there is that you got basically an entrepreneurship MBA with them paying you versus you having to pay for the MBA. I think that's such a great idea.
That's right. It's exactly what I did.
Now you focused a lot on e-commerce from almost the beginning of your career, and there's a very big difference between selling e-commerce product services, SEO, AdWords, etc., versus B2B versus B2C, typical B2C. Um, a couple of nice questions here that you actually posed me with is, what's the secret of crafting ad campaigns that actually convert and don't just burn money? That is a very important question because a lot of people starting out their journey on SEO and Google AdWords are just throwing money out into the ether. They don't actually know how the internet works or how the Google works and how all of these channels work. Talk to me about how the fetch and funnel system works and how that helps customers just make sure they don't waste their money. And maybe first talk about where's the biggest waste coming in Google Ads or advertising, and then talk about the fetch and funnel system.
Every channel is different. So where wasted spend is could be different for every channel. I think for Google specifically, sometimes for all the platforms, you have to be careful trusting the algorithms completely and not doing anything outside of that. So Google's got Performance Max. If you're not running some search campaigns, you should be. Meta, if you're just broad audiences all day long, that's definitely the way to scale, but could lookalikes or tighter audiences be getting you a higher performance, a higher ROI, right? Those are the things that you definitely have to be asking and looking at. Creative is the most important lever you can pull. So absolutely, what creative are you running? What are your hooks? All those types of things. And, I think that the most important thing is maybe the two most important things. One's understanding truly who your ideal customer profile is. That's so utterly important. We could talk about that, how you do those things, but to understand that, to really dig deep, the more you know about who your ideal customer profile, the better. I can't tell you how many clients have come our way, friends and colleagues, whatever. It's just, who's your ideal customer? Oh, all snowboarders. No, that's like maybe your addressable market. That's not really who your ideal customer profile is. The more granular you can get about it, the more you can speak directly to that person. And then the second thing is really dialing in your unique selling point. Like, why should I buy your product or service over anybody else? What is your competitive advantage? What makes you amazing? Can't tell you, we certainly have worked with a lot of service-based businesses as well. And I can't tell you how many times they're like, well, we've got all these 5-star reviews. I'm like, what? That's why I should work with you? That's not the answer, right? Or, hey, we have the lowest price. Same thing. You got to be careful. Price could be just like a competition to the bottom. So you have to be really, really careful. So it's really understanding that. We have a really fun electric skateboard client, for example, right now, where it's essentially a scooter that you take the handlebars off. They're called 2 Swift boards. And so very similar thing, right? They're like, well, it's all snowboarders. No, not quite, right? And what's the unique selling point? Well, it's like the only thing that rides like a snowboard. Well, that's not quite true, right? So then we really had to dial in and understand, okay, what is it? Who's riding this? Who's going to be passionate about this? What is the hook and what is the messaging that I can get in front of someone where they immediately get excited about this product? They have some FOMO about this product. They got to have it. And then, of course, in your retargeting and everything, you can trickle in, the value propositions and the benefits and all those other things. And, maybe that's a little last tidbit as well as the benefits. I can't tell you how many times I come across businesses and brands and where they're not highlighting the benefits enough. And your landing pages and your creative, everything is benefits, benefits, benefits. The features lead into the benefits, right? And if you have any features, it's like list how that feature equals a benefit, and sometimes call out the benefit. Sometimes the benefit could be a feeling that they get, but highlighting that, because that's what we buy from, right? We buy off of, how is this going to better my life? How is this going to make my life easier? Whatever it is, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you're selling. So if you identify all of those things and you unlock that, you'll have some of the best performing campaigns ever, because you know who you're talking to. You are making yourself stand out in the market, and then you're highlighting why they should buy it.
Yeah, it's that old adage: people buy the sizzle, not the steak, very often. And
That's right.
you've touched on some fantastic points there. You've spoken about the persona, and like you said, a lot of people don't really understand who their customer is, and especially when we look at the customer journey or the funnel, the customers different communication needs as they go along the funnel, and you've got to be at every single touch point. And your personas, you don't just have to have one persona. You could have a whole bunch of different personas with who have different benefits that they're looking for, which means you can have campaigns, multiple campaigns focusing on those different benefits. Now, a question I wanted to ask you, because you've worked with so many customers and you talk about sort of guaranteeing almost ROI, or certain results with your customers, like an average 460% return, uh, a lot of cool things here. There are dog clients and there are stars, or what's it? I can't remember what is it. Dogs and the whatever the opposite of a dog is, a cat. Cat clients. Um,
As you have this beautiful cat sitting on your lap.
exactly. He wants to join as well. Can you tell when a client has a winning offer and they're going to succeed, or when a client has got something that they can throw money at it, but no matter what they do, it's just not going to work?
Yes, definitely can. Yeah.
Okay.
And we find that in the sales cycle. So we find out early, we find out pretty immediately. And funny enough, as important as the product is, and as important as the service is, and whatever it is, and everything I just mentioned, understanding that, a lot of it comes down to the team, the founding team. Who's the marketing manager? Who are actually the people pulling the strings? Because that ends up being one of the most important things, right? When someone hires us as the experts to do the work and they don't trust us to do the work, and they just micromanage everything, and they say, no, we can't offer 20% off. No, 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 that's too big of an offer. But, well, this is why we're telling you we want to do this, and this is how it works. And they don't let us do it. Why did you hire us in the first place then, right? Like, just go do it yourself then.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's so many entrepreneurs who aren't willing to let go, right? They're not willing to delegate. They're holding, the control over so much stuff, and it's so important to alleviate that from yourself, right? The more you can delegate, the more you can let go of things. Of course, don't just like trust someone 100% and don't pay attention and just leave it alone. That's not what I'm saying. But and the ones that ask the good questions, right, is another very interesting one. Like it's very telling when someone's been through the ringer before. Maybe they worked with a bad agency or bad experience or whatever it is, and they just have lots of questions. That's great. That's great. That's awesome. Sometimes people ask no questions, and you're like, oh, this is a little bit of a red flag. But yeah, a lot of the times I feel like it comes down to who the team is. Again, like we love to scale businesses. That's what we do, right? I love to take businesses who are kind of stuck at 7 figures and really want to get to 8-figure mark or 9-figure mark, or, maybe stuck at 6 figures and get them to 7 and 8 figures. And that's specifically kind of what I'm tailoring and talking about as well, right? Is like, okay, wait, sometimes they like the founder or the CEO or the marketing manager, whoever it is actually the bottleneck sometimes, where they think it's Facebook ads not performing well or this other growth metric, or like, no, that's not it.
How you bring up the scaling from 7 to 8 figures. Is there a psychological shift customers or these businesses have to go through when they move from 6 to 7 to 8 figures? Because then budgets are getting bigger, then numbers are bigger, then if you have failing campaigns, this campaign can fail. how have you seen that mindset change of people that you've helped scale? What is a winning mindset to move from 7 to 8 figures?
That's a great question.
That's
We
why
we
they pay me the
definitely
big
do.
bucks. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely do, and we have to coach them as well. Like it's a thing, right? We have to coach them because exactly to your point, like you, I can't tell you how many people like don't understand the finances that well. So therefore they think, well, I need a 5x return on ad spend today. Right. And then they don't, and then I say, okay, but what happens if we 10x your ad spend? Well, I still need a
Mm.
5x. Why? I know your margins are 60%. Why do you need a 5x? Well, I need to cover all my costs. Okay, let's pull the curtain and talk about that a little, right? And then we look and we find that, well, they want this 5x at the current spend level because that's what covers their fixed costs and their variable costs and everything else. And then we kind of put this little profit matrix together and identify, like, hey, at a 2x or a 3x, if we 10x your spend, like, you're making hand over fist way more profit and doing really, really well. You don't need to maintain this return. And they're like, oh wow, right? So then and then they kind of understand it better and they see what's going on. And so I think it's finances is important, right? You need to be able to understand finances a little bit, or at least have someone on the team that understands finances, because you need to be able to, like, that is one of the most important shifts that you'll need to make, right? Because if you're selling physical products, okay, when do I need to order? When do I need to place the next order? When do I order ahead? All those types of things. If you're selling digital goods, understanding the numbers and the metrics and everything behind that. So either you need to understand it or someone on your team needs to understand it. Delegation and hiring more people, right? We talked about that just kind of briefly, but that is another really important thing. You kind of end up going from the solopreneur or the 3-4 peoplepreneur, team, to now really actually needing to hire some people and identifying the right people. And you really need to understand, like, who am I hiring, and what seats do I need to fill on the bus along the way? So that's like a very important thing that they need to understand and clarify. And then, what can you outsource, right? Like, I think that's always a great bonus. I mean, I've had clients do 8, 9 figures and they still have like a skeleton team and they just outsource a lot of stuff to agencies, partners, whatever. And vice versa. We see they grow and they decide it's got to go all in house. I think both have pros and cons. But looking at your business and understanding it. But I think the biggest shift is the entrepreneur does, like, you are a different, like, you're at a different stage in your business. And I can't remember who said it, but there was this really well known um, lecture or something like that, and they kind of mentioned the growth stages happen in 1 and 3s: 1 million, 3 million, 10 million, 30 million, etc. And they said the person who gets you to the 1 million is not going to be the same person that gets you to the 3 million.
Yeah.
And it keeps going. And I found that to be so true. And it could be the person within the team. Okay, I need a different CMO that got me to 3 million. That's going to get me to 10 million. But it's also the mind shift change. The person I was to get the agency to $1 million was not the same person that I needed to become to get the agency to $10 million, right? And so you absolutely have to have that mental mind shift change, and not think of yourself as this little business. I can't tell you how many times we have clients, they go, well, oh, I don't have budget for that. I'm just a little business. And I'm like, you just did $5 million last year. I hate to say this. Well, I don't hate to say this, but you are no longer a little business, right? And so you have to end up having those shifts, and then, take bigger, it enables you to take bigger risks, take bigger swings, attempt things that, enable you to go further and faster, because now you're able to, right? When you have really small budgets, you can't test 100 different things. But
Yeah.
when you're able to do that, take bigger swings, take bigger risks.
I can totally, I mean, I totally agree with pretty much 99.9% of what you're saying, because it's absolutely true. And especially that mindset shift of going from, $1 million to the next level. Some people have a psychological block and they can't get there. And in some businesses, they realize, well, now we need to get people in with those experiences, and then they trust them a little bit too much, and then things go down. There are so many
Yeah.
complexities, and it's why it's almost like amoebas. in a swamp, and one came out to be a human being, etc. The luck of the draw in terms of getting the absolute right team, the right the environment, etc. So some of it isn't in your control, but
But also
you,
like what your goals are, right?
yeah,
Like that's the first thing that we do when anybody comes on board. But I think it's important to understand what your personal goals are, because your goal might not be to get to $10 million. Like you can
yeah.
run a little lifestyle business and make a lot of money and be really happy. You don't need to keep chasing bigger and bigger numbers, but some people do, and that's okay. So just understanding that is so important as well, because then that helps you determine the path and what you want to do.
Now I'm going to ask you a slightly different question. It seems like we're not going to get another Coca-Cola, another General Electric, another Unilever based on how industry and businesses are going now. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think, in terms of some of the businesses that you've worked with, do you think you're going to see these big conglomerates again, or do you think businesses are now breaking into those companies that are focusing on very sort of distinct segments and are not going to be able to scale to these multi-billion-dollar conglomerates like we've seen in the past?
A little of both. I do believe you're still going to see the conglomerates. I do believe that those things are going to happen. Um, in my world, Attentive is one of those ones that I think of immediately. Like Attentive, 5 years ago, there was non-existent, and Attentive, like they just do SMS, right? If you run an e-com business, whatever, use them for SMS services. Um, they raised a lot of money, and they're acquiring every single solitary business that is in that space. And they're massive. Like we talked to our rep there, and he's like, yeah, we're 200 people now, we're 5,000 people. Like it's just, right, a massive company in a couple of years. And we see that happening as well in some of the product spaces and things like that too. And I do believe you could still have, you could still build another Nike and another Under Armour and things like that. And I love those stories. Like Under Armour is one of my favorite ones. The dude was just selling t-shirts out of a van and now he's freaking Under Armour. Right? That's incredible story. But no, but I also think that when you stay niche down and you stay right highly focused, and you end up having a higher return, you end up making more money, you end up serving those customers so much better. And so no matter what it is, right? And no matter what it is. And so and I also think we're all becoming more conscious consumers. And so I think that's the other piece of it, is how relevant, does that happen? I mean, the Coca-Colas exist because they just acquire everybody else, right? Like they just through acquisition, like I just mentioned with Attentive. But yeah, I mean, I see that happening, continuing to happen for sure in so many cycles. But yeah, I mean, it's so interesting where there's some of these companies and they get so big, and I'm like, I don't know how they'll fail. Like Boosted Boards is one of them, right? They're doing all the right things. They had the big influencers, they had the VC backing, they had made this amazing product, they scaled to be this huge company, and then they went out of business. And so, it's very interesting watching those cycles and seeing that. But yeah, I mean, I still believe there's opportunity. I mean, Book's big flower company that we work with, like, I think they're like 300 million, 400 million now. It still can happen, right? A flower company, very old school, 1-800-Flowers exist. All these other huge flower brands exist. They just kind of came out of the woodworks. But how did they do it? They had a very unique selling point, right? They had a key point of differentiation over any of the other flower companies. And so because they carved out that lane, it enabled them to charge a premium. It enabled them to kind of increase the level of service. And it enabled them to stand out in the market. And so because of that, yeah, okay, you want to become $1 billion, maybe you need to raise some capital, who knows? But it's yeah, I do believe there's still kind of opportunities for both. Whether or not, I mean, there's pros and cons to both, obviously, though, too.
Yeah, it's such an interesting space because some of these companies just mushroom up from nowhere, and you wonder how do they manage to scale? Because I've scaled from 2 people to 18 people plus, etc. And there's all of these additional people, and you lose often the original feeling and what do you call it, the original sort of ethos of the organization as it grows. And it's just fascinating to see how these large companies try try and build in brand values, etc., by telling people, sending them brand manuals and having posters on the bathroom stalls saying this is what we believe. And I think those days, I can't see those days continuing where people are being indoctrinated indoctrinated like that anymore. You spoke
Yeah.
a little bit earlier about how you were a little bit early on the bus when it came to the bicycle rental. The Web3 business that you are now not secretly funding, but you are starting up. That the Web3 industry seems to have had a bit of a false start a couple of years ago. Why are you going to this space now? Do you think that the major stumbling blocks have sort of been covered, and that people are starting to think of use cases for it now?
Yeah, 100%. I know we're at the right time. We're at the right place at the right time. Identifying that opportunity, is something that I'm very cognizant of and careful of. Um, there's obviously serious utility to Web3. I mean, at this point, I think we're technically at levels of Web 5 at this point. So, the fact that all websites are still pretty much Web 2 and Web 5 exists is kind of funny. But yeah, the marketers ruin everything. Let's face it, Nicholas. Right? Marketers ruin everything, and people who can just get a quick buck are gonna do it. And so the false start happened 1,000%. And now it's funny because I think specifically in the crypto world, the veil has fallen. No one's like, oh, we're building this amazing technology and you buy our token and hold it for the next year. No, those days are gone. Like you get in and you get out fast, unless you're buying stable coins, right? Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever. So those days are gone, right? But the benefits of Web3 100% exist, right? For us, it's security, it's transparency, and it's authenticity. So being able to authenticize it, something, this you actually physically own this device, right? So there's no, concert ticket can't be faked, all these things, right? But it 100% has to go back to the utility.
Mm.
And that's why we're not even really screaming it from the rooftops by any means when we're talking with we're mostly working with musicians at this point. So as musicians are being onboarded, we're not going to them and being like, it's this amazing Web3 platform. You're gonna love it. It's amazing. No. We're talking about the benefits of what the platform does for them, why they should be excited about it, why it's unique for them. And then in the back, it's like, oh, by the way, it's super secure. It has all these other added benefits because it's on Web3. We're not going to call it an NFT, call it a digital collectible, right? All these things to then make sure that we're not uh, building on the stigmas that happen, right? Because those things did happen. But I think of QR codes is probably the prime example. I think NFTs will have an exact same cycle as QR codes did. QR codes came out, everyone was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be the biggest thing ever. They fall flat on their face. Everyone's like, QR codes is the stupidest thing ever. We completely stopped using QR codes for years. Then COVID happens, and now we can't get away. Now QR codes are everywhere again, right? And now they're like real world. Everyone gets it. Everyone uses them. QR codes are never going away.
Yeah.
I believe the same thing with NFTs, right? It's the big money grab in the beginning. Everyone just like made a quick buck. No one understood what it is. No utility behind it. Like, what did I even buy? Did I even buy it? Made it super complicated. So we're like, okay, there's all these opportunities to make it really easy for people, make it really user friendly. But there's a reason Starbucks called their NFTs collectible stamps, right? They didn't say they were NFTs, and they've
Yeah.
said that for a reason because of the stigmas. And so, yeah, there's some really interesting things happening in that space, and so um, we're seeing some huge use cases. I mean, Nike did an NFT drop; they did $100 million, and then they made another 100 million off the royalties. So like there's amazing use cases and case studies already out there. So yeah, I'm really excited because it's the right place at the right time. And even if we are a little early, that's great because yeah, I think that will just it'll be a bonus for us for sure.
Yeah, you can iron out the kinks. I think the interesting thing about Web3 is that as you've got more and more kids who've been playing on Minecraft, on Fortnite, and using Robux and Roblox, the whole concept of Web3 is going to be so much easier for this next generation of consumers as soon as they start getting credit cards and as soon as they start getting their own bank accounts. So I think it's a really interesting space. Samir, we could talk about Web3 and all of these exciting things for hours and hours, but let me just send people off now to enjoy the rest of their days. Where can I send them to find some more information about you? Or if they're a business that wants to scale from 7 to 8 figures, or if they are musicians and entertainers, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, I'm the only Samir Kamuni in the world, so you can certainly find me on any social media outlet you'd like to talk to me on. LinkedIn's great for sure, Instagram, whatever you want. You can hit me at Samir at fetchfunnel.com as well, Samir. And yeah, I mean, honestly, happy to help anybody. If people are in their entrepreneurial journey and trying to figure out things to do, they just want to talk shop, they have a business idea, whatever it is, they're trying to scale, they're hitting some bottlenecks, they're hitting some ceilings, they don't know how to scale. I'm happy to help anybody, and yeah, so definitely feel free to reach out and. Yeah, not gonna put them through any hard sales cycle or anything like that. Yeah, I'm not the sales guy at the agency or anything like that. So happy to help anyone in any way I can.
Fantastic. Well, I'll stick those links in the description so if folks are interested, and they should be, they can reach out to Samir. So that's Samir. Thank you so much for your time, and yeah, good luck in your new ventures.
Thanks, Nicholas. Really appreciate it.
I really do appreciate your comments, so why not go and watch this live on YouTube, or go to my website, kuhne.no, that's kuhne.no, for more information.